Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Ojai Historic Preservation Commission. Our first order of business this evening is the selection of new commission chairperson and vice chair. So, well, it's listed before roll call, so I'm just following the menu.
Do we have any, do we have any nominations for chair?
Okay.
It's been it for 4 years.
I
You're
have.
okay with not change it?
I've served for a number of years as chair now, and so I would place in nomination Brian Akins.
Any more nominations? We have 2 nominations on the table. Okay, nominations are closed. Do we have any motions to either make a motion to elect McCready or Akins as the chair? We have 2 nominations on the table.
So can I make a motion as chair?
Absolutely.
No, to make the motion that we select Brian Akins as chair.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, did you say aye? Okay. And so Vice Chair Akins is now Chair Akins. So now we're open the nominations for Vice Chair.
We changed.
You can change after we do everything, everybody. Nominations are open for Vice Chair. Anybody want to nominate someone for Vice Chair?
I nominate Thais Quinn.
Well,
Is there any other nominations?
but I'm not, tonight's my last official time, so I would love to do it, but I don't know that I'm going to be reappointed or
You
when.
can still go ahead and be elected, and if you aren't on it, then we'll just do the elections again.
Okay.
Any other nominations? Nominations are closed. Any motion for Thais?
Motion, make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
And who seconded, Gina? Or
Cynthia.
Cynthia? Okay. All in favor of Thais Quinn being vice chair?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. You are now the vice chair, so you can change your seats now.
Uh-oh.
Chair Akins, you have the floor.
Okay. First off, I want to thank our former chair, McCready, who has, he thought he'd done it 3 years. 4 years? Oh, see, we slipped another one in on you. So anyway, I want to thank Chair McCready, who has been our chairman for 4 years and been very involved in a great leadership role, both in demeanor, in keeping us on track, and especially with his professional background, has been key to informing us and helping us in the decisions we've made over the years. So,
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
okay, so again, we will ask Sherry to take the roll, please.
Chair Akins?
Here.
Vice Chair Quinn?
Here.
Commissioners Convery?
Here.
McCready?
Here?
James? McHatton?
Here.
1 vacancy.
Okay, we'll get into the vacancy in just a minute. So if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Feels a little strange for me because on Tuesday nights, I am usually in full umpire regalia with a bunch of 11 and 13-year-olds waiting to play Little League down in Oakdale Park. So This is a little bit more comfortable, and you folks are a little less challenging than those 11 through 13-year-olds and their parents. So, thank you. Public communications, members of the public wishing to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker card, file it with the secretary. Cards are available in the council chambers lobby. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by the chair. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and must direct their comments to the chair, not the audience or press. While the Historic Preservation Commission is in session, members of the commission, city staff, and members of the audience are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. So, Mr. Lewis. Yes, you, sir. Museum comments.
Thank you, Chair Aiken. And happy to say, as a colleague on the museum board, welcome, Chair Aikens. A week from tomorrow, May 18th, is Third Friday. Third Friday, of course, as we all know, is the night that downtown merchants stay open late to welcome people to build community downtown. And the museum joins in that. And on May 18th, we in particular are emphasizing and partnering with the Ojai studio artists who are doing a mural or working on a mural having to do with thanking first responders in regard to the recent events of last fall. Artists Vera Long, Chris Byrne, and Susan Guy will be on hand at the museum. We'll also have refreshments and, of course, our usual exhibits. And we urge all of you folks and anyone within the sound of my voice to come by the museum from 5 to 7:30 on Friday, May 18th. 2 days later, May 20th, Sunday, 4:30 to 6, Town Talk, featuring yours truly in conversation with the inimitable Peter Bellwood. Peter, as many of you know, is an Ojai stalwart. He is a member of the Household Gods. He may bring his ukulele, he says he will, and play a George Formby song or two. We're going to be talking, he and I, about his past in what they call the British satire boom, which involved him and Peter Cook and Dudley Moore and a huge raft of famous people that he had to do with professionally in his younger days. Of course, he's now a screenwriter and an Ojai person and an actor, and he's the famous inimitable Peter Bellwood. So feel free to come down to the museum a week from Sunday on the 20th. The current exhibit, again, which has been very well received, is Scorched Souls. It is the annual Ojai Studio Artists exhibit. This year, their theme is, of course, they're responding to the recent Thomas fire and responding in a very evocative way. So we urge anyone who hasn't come to come by and see that. It'll be up through early June. In late June, we will move on to our next exhibit, which will be Starchitecture. It is inspired by and in connection with the Ojai by Design book, author, your recent Vice Chairman, Craig Walker, and published by your colleagues at the Ojai Arts Commission. And that exhibit will open in late June and be up through the summer. So we look forward to seeing you all at the museum.
Mark, question?
Ms. James?
How is your gate coming along? I haven't seen
Swimmingly. Doug Lochner is at work at the fabrication. And meanwhile, there are some issues, and actually Chair Aikens can speak to that if you really want details, but having to do with we have to get the arch, in effect, ready to, or prepared, or copacetic, essentially, with what we're doing with the gates, and it needs a little bit of improvement. And of course, it is on the building is on the National Register of Historic Places, so there are various considerations that we are taking into consideration, as is the city.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing it.
Us too. Really, we do.
Sometime this year. So the other thing that's going on with the gate is, again, Doug Lochner's art is being fashioned. It will be inside the arch, not touching the arch. The issue is And there's multiple parties involved in what's going on. Doug Lochner, of course, the artist, Greg Grant, who's over Public Works, Wendy, the executive director. I somehow inserted myself when I was approached by Doug Lochner, and we started talking about the bricks that are within the arch. If you look at the bricks, you'll see that they have worn over the years, not looking to collapse. However, there is differing levels. So if you put the artwork inside, essentially you're going to end up with gaps because of the way the bricks have taken place over the year. My wife and I went off to Sedona about 4 to 6 weeks ago. This came about just before I headed off there. Sedona, if you've been there, is the land of red clay, red adobe. And so I got in touch with a gentleman named Adam that does adobe bricks by design. That's all they do is adobe bricks. And so I've been talking with him. He's been helping us. 2 days ago, I sent off some chips from the arch to send to him so he could see what the adobe was like and what the coloring was like, to possibly fashion some sample bricks for us. Then he'll send back to us to possibly use as a part of some type of restoration that would be done under Greg Grant's direction. But again, we're just trying to, instead of just sealing the arch in place with all of the zigzags going all the way up, looking at possibly restoring it a bit without, going into it severely, and to complete the arch back to possibly where it was when it was put together 100 years ago. So again, that gentleman in Sedona, they manufacture the bricks in, I think, Cottonwood, just south of Sedona, and they only do bricks. He's been very helpful. So he's waiting for the samples, which I try to save a few dollars, and I guess it's going to get there 3 days instead of 1 day. So that's where we're at right now. He's waiting for his ideas, his sample to come back. Okay. Minutes for the meeting of April 12th, 2018. Oh, public comment? Public communications? Sorry. I have a card for public communications. Don Teeting, waving her hand. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Congratulations, Chair Akins.
Thank you.
3 items of comment. First comment was something I had mentioned before about the request to get historic resources reports online. I am thrilled to see that those are up. Not sure who's responsible for that, but thank you. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry.
They are found as links under what it looks like the updated list of Ojai historic landmarks. So that has also been updated. So for the public, if you're looking for historic resources reports for landmark properties, you can go into that list of Ojai's historic landmarks, click on the yellow highlighting, and the historic resource report comes up. I would encourage for those users who aren't familiar with the city's use of yellow highlighting that you can then click in, I would encourage some language on the website saying, directing people that that's how they access the historic resource report. Second item is regarding another thing that I had brought up earlier was the walking tour brochure update from 2011. It's something the museum carries in the visitor center, and we have a lot of visitors who aren't available for the 10:30 museum walking tour on Saturday and often pick up that brochure. I realize that's probably a bigger project than the other project, but one thing from a public standpoint, it's sometimes difficult to track where we are with items in terms of agenda items and the status of things. I'm thrilled to see the future agenda items with a list of what's coming up on the agendas. I would request that discussion items and other updates such as the walking tour brochure and just that somehow that the status of all the items that you're working on, because you've got a lot on your plate, is tracked in an easy document for people to see. The third item I'm not sure if you're aware that on May 2nd, the Planning Commission met. It was public hearing item number 3 to review 110 Fox Street. 110 Fox Street is a 1920s house. There was a preliminary historic resource evaluation that was conducted on April 6th by Sam Buenaventura Research Associates. It was found not likely to be eligible at that point, and that was provided to the Planning Commission. I would encourage you to find some way, city policy, city procedures, put something in place whereby the HPC is notified of all historic report requests as well as findings real time, so that you have the opportunity to evaluate those when the city is getting those information, so that you know when they're going before the Planning Commission, so that you can take appropriate actions if you have concerns with any of the reports or the findings that come in. So, thank you.
Great, thank you, Don. I just want to respond to that last item. We've been working on changing the city code for years. And just, I think 2 months ago, we completed that and made recommendations to the city council. As far as we know, that's in a black hole someplace, or maybe in the desk drawer underneath our table. So we're not sure when that's coming before the city council, but that's on is it? Okay, so, okay.
Thank you.
News to us. So May 22nd, it will be on the council agenda. But within those changed guidelines, that request was made that if there is a historical resources report done for a property, that the Historic Preservation Commission be alerted so that we're aware of what's happening, other than just, as you do, scanning the Planning Commission agenda when it comes out. For people that may not know what 110 Fox Street is, in talking with Don, drove over there, and it is a kind of unique type of spa. I didn't want to look like I was lurking, going up front and reading the address, but it's just there on the left as you're going down Fox Street. It looks like a concrete building, interesting. Worthwhile. Most of the historical resources report, basically, which was almost 2 pages, was why this isn't historic. I can't remember that there was much that said why it was historic, but again, I agree with you. The commission agrees with you that if there are historic resources reports on property, we should be made aware of that. Thank you. Elise, you have a card here for number 3. Did you have a public
I
comment?
just wanted to make a comment about.
Please, go
this.
ahead.
In case you're not aware, what they want to do is tear that house down, completely down, and replace it with a two-story home
And an accessory dwelling unit.
and an accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah.
So I think every house on that street is single-story, but anyway. that's all I wanted to add.
I haven't had a chance to look at what the Planning Commission decided. Gina, did you have?
Commissioner comment period.
Who?
Commissioner comment period.
I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, minutes. I think we're at the minutes of the meeting April 12th, 2018. Are there any adjustments?
I had none.
Nope. Okay, so we have, do we have a motion then to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? 1. Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. What am I looking? Do we have minutes from the prior? No, that is the prior meeting I'm looking at, sorry. Okay. Discussion item 3, this is revision to language of plaque that was created for City of Ojai Historic Landmark number 23, Smith Hobson House, Structures and Estate, also known as the City Hall offices, located at 401 South Ventura Street. We have a public comment on this. Elise?
Elise DePoit, Ojai. I'm prepared to give an update if it's all right.
If you would, please, yes.
I have, over the past, since the last meeting here, I have done extensive research, and the result of which so far is that it is inconclusive who actually was the architect of this building. The builder, Robert Winfield, has claimed numerous times that he also was the designer and that he has designed and built other buildings in this town. The problem is there's nothing other than what he's saying is that he did it. He also claims quite often that he designs buildings without any drawings, plans. He's claimed that for many years, and it's common knowledge. The problem is that David Mason has written in the past that it was a Richard Requa design, or he's sometimes said Mead and Requa. But I have researched so much, and I have never seen a single solitary breath or even the slightest mention of that it was. We're going to still keep trying to do some research. We'd like to postpone the writing of it because, to tell you the truth, Craig Walker and I cannot come to an agreement on this. We're at a stalemate, so I don't know what to do but to keep trying to find something definitive, and I don't know what to do if we don't find something definitive. But, you know, to me, David Mason, it's possible he was misinformed. We don't know because we can't tell, you know, if he was misinformed or where he got his information from, because we can't find any other source for this fact. So it's kind of at a stalemate right now, and I don't know what to do. So we're just hoping to have some more time to research.
I'm going to do an update right after she finishes because I have more
Yeah,
information. Meet and Rick. Yep. Thank you,
so,
Elise.
okay.
Okay, so I have been meeting with Craig and with Elise, who's done fabulous investigatory work. These are copies of the items we looked at the other day. I also called Terry Hill at his home 2 days ago to see if he had any kind of information or documents as a long-term Historic Preservation Commission member. He did not. He only had the information that was presented to him as a part of the Historical Resources report that was requested and prepared when we were looking at landmarking this building. I put in a phone call to Pat Dorner this afternoon. She was in a meeting and I was unable to get a hold of her. As you may know, Pat had 14 file cabinets of history of the Ojai Valley that unfortunately went up in smoke with the Thomas fire as it roared up and over and took out their two-story house that was deemed to be unprotectable by the firefighters. But one of the things that Pat Dorner, again, a multi-decade member of the Historic Preservation Commission, did was she turned over 2 boxes of stuff from her days on the HPC. I went through those this afternoon, as I told Craig and Elise that I would. An interesting thing that was in there was March 4th, 1996, Historic Preservation address to the Historic Preservation Commissioners from Andy S. Belknap, City Manager, talking about the history of City Hall. In that, and he takes his comments based on an open house that took place on February 22nd of that same year, 1996. Again, I don't know who the speakers are. I suggest and he credits the architecture to, here it is. It says, Meanwhile, back in Ojai, the Hobsons were having their house rebuilt and changed from the earlier craftsman style to the more popular Spanish architecture. The builder was Robert Winfield, and the architect was Richard Requa. Both men had come to Ojai from San Diego to help construct the arcade post office tower and various other buildings. The Hobsons continued to live in the house while the new one was constructed. The rooms were torn down one at a time and a new one built. So again, that's information that was in a file by Pat Clark Dorner, City of Ojai, HPC, status pending City Hall, because again, for 30 years, it was their goal to get this building landmarked. Other things that we looked at, A.L. Hobson home to be transformed. This is an article. She has written a date of May 1st, 1915. 1915 is what she has on here. I'm not sure about the date, but
That should be 25.
that's what I thought. I'm just going by the date that's handwritten.
Paper had it wrong.
Oh. Okay.
May I please?
Yeah, I'm just trying to read it before you.
Oh, I wrote.
Yeah, 1915 isn't.
25. That's fine.
Yeah, I agree. So, so it talks about them building it, building transformed, does not talk about either of them in there. In a article, August 7th, 1925, and I'm guessing Elise has seen these since Elise has gone through the Ojai Valley News or whatever it was called at that time for years 25, 26, and 27. So this is August 7th, 1925. Mrs. A.L. Hobson is here from Ventura with supervising eyes interestedly focused upon the remodeling of her home, which is undergoing complete transformation, the artistic work being directed by contractor Winfield. So again, we have found much information talking about Winfield being the contractor. David Mason, in his article and talking about that, referred to the architects as being Mead and Requa. But again, based on what Elise just shared with us and her research and everybody else, and also there was these two books. These two books are written by Saul Sheridan, 1926. One of these is a biography, and looking at that biography, it mentions the work of Requa. It also mentions the word of Mr.
Not Requa. It's not in there. Remember?
Hang on, was it Mead?
Yeah.
Sorry, all of this has been crashing my brain for. There we go.
I could give a more thorough update of all my research if you want.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm just doing the different things we talked about. So, things we talked about in the last day. So Frank Mead is one of the people within the biography. Again, this is Saul Sheridan, done in 1926. 1920, talking about Mead and Requa, they came to Ojai and here gained quick recognition as capable and efficient architects. They have been identified with the construction of many of the most attractive and costly structures in the valley. Mr. Requa designed the arcade on Ojai Avenue, the post office building, the arcade in front of the park. The partners jointly designed the El Roblar Hotel. It does not mention in that the Smith-Hobson house, whereas if you go to Robert W. Winfield, it says he was mainly a builder, not widely known as an architect, not professionally an architect. He later located in San Diego, California, where he remained until 1917 when he came to Ojai and has remained here continuously since. Since coming here, has received recognition as the most substantial sort, having been employed to design and build many of the most expensive and beautiful residences for the better class of people throughout this community. Among the buildings erected here by him are the residences of H.T. Sinclair, Thomas Sheldon, A.L. Hobson, which is this house, and F.C. Preston, then other different places. So that just goes along with what Elise was saying. I think we have firm documentary evidence that Winfield was the contractor, but little evidence detailing specifically of whether let me get this right. Frank Mead of Mead and Requa was the architect. Yeah, but not too long. I know you did a lot of research, so.
The problem with, part of the problem with Winfield is at times, there has been articles about him in 62, 67, Star Free Press in 68, and some of the articles makes him come off kind of boastful and claiming things that he might have partly designed something, but comes off kind of boastful and doesn't give credit to other architects that were involved in his project. So it kind of makes you doubt his work. And it's too bad, because he really, it's too bad he did that, because he probably was a very talented and had an exceptional career, you know, if he hadn't done that. And I have emails from Barbara Smith. She's a granddaughter. She said that the contractor designed she was talking about the little house. You know, there's 2 houses here. She was talking about the little house. She said she remembers when she was a little girl that there wasn't any plans, that she remembers them putting stakes in the ground and tying off, and she remembers her father saying, well, that should be big enough, that should be about the right size for the living room. That she wrote this. I have just recontacted her again. She lives in Hawaii, and she's about 97 right now. So I don't know how much I'll get back from her, but that's what she has claimed. And then we started thinking, well, maybe, you know, Winfield did build that, and maybe there's plans laying around from Requa for this part of it, but nothing's surfaced. And to be clear, I think that David has always said just Requa. He hasn't said that I know of in his writings and stuff,
Okay.
Mead and Requa. So this is 1925 we're talking about. So that's a little more clarification. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Elise. So that's part of the reason why I went to the Sheridan book, the biography on Winfield, because again, it was written in 1926. So I think that's the most closer to the time that it was actually happening. So Elise is contacting Mr. Johnson at the Ventura County Museum tomorrow, and Craig was emailing to the Historical Society in San Diego to see if they had anything for Requa in their offices there. So other comments by commissioners? Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Quinn.
I have a question. I'm sure it's all been covered, but I didn't really hear it. So the University of Santa Barbara has a lot of building plans from Ojai from this era, and I'm just wondering if anyone's checked to see if there possibly are building plans for this remodel that could be there.
Do you have a specific place that you would contact?
I really don't know, but my house plans are there.
Is it the architecture department or something?
I really don't know, because I didn't look them. I have a copy of my plans that was obtained for me by the person that did my report. So, but they told me that a lot of these plans are there. And where, I don't know, but my report was done by, Buenaventura, and you might ask them, because they would know where to find them. But my house was 1922, so that same era, those plans were being warehoused or whatever, stored at the university.
Okay.
It's just an idea.
Commissioner Combry?
You answered it. It's
Okay. Question for Commissioner McCready? Do you happen to know do you know of
It would be
the
the
librarian at UCSB?
I think it's the UCSB Museum, I believe.
Oh, there's
Or our museum archives.
okay.
They do have a significant collection of architectural documents and drawings.
Okay. Elise, did you want to contact them? You want me to contact them?
I can do it, or I can have Craig do it. You've got enough to do.
Okay.
It seems like.
Kind of been enjoying this.
Oh, if you want to.
I usually am
If you want
In fact, I'm still buried in family history research that I'm constantly doing. So I'll give them a call and find out. Because I've heard that they have just fabulous archives of Ojai stuff, but I've never been there. So thank you for that suggestion. So I guess since we have nothing that really defines clearly, other than, the recapture of the 1996 open house, and we don't know without contacting our former city manager, Andy Belknap, to ask who actually made that comment to get some, clarification. I would think that we might want to postpone the decision for another month if we could, if someone wants to make that motion. Whoa. Let me-
I just have a discussion. And I'd just like to say, because I have to wait to be reappointed before I get to talk again after tonight, so I want to get everything out tonight.
There you go.
But there are some, I'm like a big stickler for commas and comma splice. So if this write-up is what we're going to use with just the insertion or the deletion of the builder and the architect, then I'd just like to make sure that we address these commas before we actually, okay. Okay, I'll let you do.
It's Vista de la Sierra. Sorry.
Okay, I see.
I found out it's their name of their house. Are you looking at the current one?
Yes,
Yeah.
The name of their house is Vista de la,
not Del.
yeah,
Okay. No,
small.
it should be a
V-
D.
Small D-E and small L-A. That's the feminine, and Sierra is a feminine word.
Okay, thank you for
And they're
that.
not quite sure either because Elise has stationery showing both names.
Okay.
Thank you for finding that.
So, in the first line, there should not be a comma after Hobson. And then, it says fireplaces, comma, in the second paragraph, no comma. But then let's add a comma next to the last line in that paragraph, behind Barbara. Okay, and then the third paragraph, golf course, comma. And in the last, this isn't a comma thing, but in the last paragraph, in 1976, they became the Ojai City Hall. Let's define what they is, the buildings were, or let's just not, the they becomes a what?
How about the estate?
Yes, there you go.
The estate
Yeah,
instead of they?
they,
Yeah.
It's either the former residence or something.
okay, that's great. Something like that. I'm not attached to that. It's just, I don't want it to say they. But otherwise, I love how you did this. It's very nice.
I have a comment.
I just wanted
Yeah,
to-
but it's more than the
I wanted to
house.
add caretaker to that cabin. I wanted to add the word caretaker cabin.
Caretaker cabin.
Small caretaker cabin
Yeah,
in third paragraph.
that's the one that's been torn down.
A small caretaker cabin, okay.
One more
Brian,
question,
or Chair.
please. I
Yeah,
think when you
just-
put, oh, sorry. You put the comma after Barbara,
Mhm.
and then it says and. Usually you don't put a comma.
No, you do.
They do, you do now. I can't
It
stand
It
that.
changed, and when I went back to school and I found that out, I was like, no.
Oh,
It
that was my
is.
comment.
No, I hate it too. Commissioner Convery
That was my comment.
on the,
Because, I mean, I don't know about the now with with commas. I don't know why then and now is an issue with commas. But if you take out the rest of the sentence, it's Barbara and Helen Margaret, so there's no comma. Same at miniature golf course and extensive gardens. If you take the rest of the sentence away, there would not be a comma there. That's the grammatical rule. I mean, I know you probably looked it up, but I think it's odd.
Let me just, if you want me to, I can explain why there is.
No, that's okay.
comma.
It's okay.
But there really is, just trust me.
Believe you.
okay, can we come up with something for they? It's really more than the Smith Hobson house because that's just this.
The property,
The last sentence. In 1976, they became the city.
oh no,
The two homes.
homes became homes.
May I suggest?
Yes.
something? In 1976, these properties became the Ojai City Hall. Is
Okay.
that acceptable?
I can't.
These buildings, these structures, this property, this entire property became the Ojai City Hall.
I think these structures could work, or these
I
buildings.
was going to say these structures.
Yes.
Yeah, these structures.
Mhm.
Okay. Structures. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second before the discussion took place on, I think, postponing the decision for one more month.
No, I didn't make,
Oh,
somebody.
Oh, I thought you made, I thought we had two people jumping to make a motion. I thought, oh, well, you both made it at the same time, so that's why I sat back out of the way. Okay, so who's making a motion? Okay, and who's seconding?
I second.
Okay, got that, Sherry? The motion is to postpone the decision on the final language until the next meeting. We are. Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Elise, for all the work you're doing. Aye. Now that we've done that, a question for me, and of course, Elise has already, we've already changed all of this into a digital format. It's actually already archived on a archive for the museum. But would it be helpful for you to get copies of the research that's been done so far, or is that just going to confuse you, or what would people like?
I'd like to see if they have ECSB.
Okay, so just if any new stuff we get, have that sent out to the commission. Okay. That work for you, Darwin?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You're sitting really quiet over there.
Oh, I was just thinking that if we delay it and we find nothing on RECWA, or the rumors continue, would it be, well, we'll just wait till next month.
Okay.
But, I mean, we could insert a phrase such as, certain attributions have been made to RECWA but not verified, or something like that. But we'll decide that next month.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah, we've been, I agree with you. Great. Thank you, everyone. Future agenda items. Did Mr. Connolly have to bow out? You talked to him before the meeting? Our staff person?
Yes, he had to be absent tonight.
Oh, okay. Okay. So future agenda items. One of the things on this, and it goes back to what Dawn was saying, and she had mentioned what the Planning Commission does, so I pulled up their future agenda items under their Planning Commission meeting that they just held. And it has, as you can see, all kinds of information on it, whereas we somewhat have a calendar. Okay. And the future agenda items, and so Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, they had the budget kickoff. I'm the treasurer for the Ojai Valley Museum. We put in an ask to the city council for their support. And so I came to the city council budget committee meeting with one hat on as being treasurer of the museum, but the second hat was, it goes down to these 4 items down here. The confusion that seems to be, and perhaps they're talking about it May 22nd. Sherry, do you know if they're talking about giving us a go-ahead on doing historic resource report requests anytime soon?
Director Conley is aware of it, and he is speaking with City Council about it.
Okay, so the question that had come up, again, came up in the discussion with Craig, Elise, and myself, was we have items that we have suggested that we would like to see historic resource reports. And last month, there were 3 items on that list. Now there are 4 with the Downtown Historic District added to that list. Word has been that a council member has said that there are funds available in the current fiscal year budget. That's $15,000, because I looked at the current fiscal year budget before I went to the budget meeting. We have $15,000, which is essentially sitting there available to us for historic resource reports. And so I said in the meeting with the HPC hat on that, hey, we'd like to spend that money before the end of the year, fiscal year, which is June 30th. However, the question was and remains, because the inference has been, well, the money's there. Come on, HPC, get your act together and request, go out and get RFQs. I'm sure I'm just telling you what people outside this building are saying, based on information. And so I broached that subject with the city council on whether we're, with the funds preserved or within the plan, whether we can go ahead and make that designation or whether we need to wait for the city council. And they affirmed that we need to wait for the city council and we should make a request. To which I said, well, we had 3 items on our request a month ago on our agenda. Now we have 4 items as a request on this month's agenda. So I think we've pretty much sent our request through staff to the city council, and we're just sitting waiting. And so I just was going to confirm with Mr. Connolly, who is our staff member.
That was my
Commissioner
impression too.
Darwin.
That was my impression too, that we had,
He is taking it to council. He's going to ask them if they want staff to put out an RFP or we don't need an RFQ, just an RFP to get bids, or if they're comfortable with staff just selecting someone and going for it. So we need to know how the city council wants to direct us to proceed. So.
But we have no idea when it's going to come before the city
Yes,
council.
he doesn't. It's either the next meeting or the following meeting.
Okay, so it's coming up in the
It is
next couple of
scheduled,
meetings.
Yes.
Okay. So I mean, that's one of the frustrations is, and again, when the city council said to me, well, then you guys need to make a request. And I'm like, we have made a request. 3 requests a month ago, now 4 requests. We have made a request. So, yes, Commissioner Quinn.
I would like to discuss the Ojai Playhouse. I'm not comfortable with doing this without speaking to the owners. I really think the owners at this point would be against this since they're trying to sell the theater for a lot of money. And I think that it should definitely be a landmark, and I wish we had done it a long time ago, but I wouldn't be comfortable with us doing it on our own without speaking to them.
Okay. So prior to the meeting a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I'm not sure, I went and I met with Mr. Anwar at his, not studio, his business, gallery. Thank you, at his gallery, which is beautiful, by the way. And asked him about that very thing, told him that we were looking at possibly, I mentioned in the time frame or in the the area as a downtown historic district, and, his playhouse being a part of that downtown historic district. And he told me at that time he would like to wait a few months till he had a better idea of, right now at that time he was just getting going with everything to get the playhouse back in shape. So he wanted to put it one way, wait till the dust settles a little bit to address that. He did support putting together a downtown historic district. He thought that was a great idea. So he did not mention to me at that time that the property was for sale. I think that became public a couple weeks after that. So again, we get into and this came up when we had our joint meeting with the city council, and with, I know Paul expressed some question about doing a historic resources report on the Ojai Playhouse. Okay. If in fact it might get sold. I think that's when I first heard it might get sold, so. But, again, our question is, what's historic about the Ojai Playhouse? And we can't really truly know that until we get a historic resources report. Other comments? Observations? Do we have a priority? It sounded like what Sherry said was they may turn it over to Community Development Director
I think
Connolly to make a choice.
Well, no, he was actually going to say, I think to the council, do you want to go for the Playhouse and force an owner who hasn't asked for it? Or do you want to go for a city building, like the Boyd Center? And it's smoother. So do we want to have another grammar school kind of situation or not?
Well, I'd like to note that we preceded the school. I know there's a difference of opinion, having met with Superintendent Cantwell for 4 hours.
Private property or city property first? He was going to ask the council.
I agree on the city.
I would like to put the historic district, the Boyd Center, I guess I would do it, something like Boyd Center.
Prioritize if you want it as a commission.
Yep, that's essentially where I'm trying to head. Thank you.
But the historic district, to me, is the key to everything, because that encompasses the Playhouse, it encompasses the whole arcade, and it would stop things from happening that are even happening as we speak in that area. So that's where I would put my priority.
Other people have priorities?
Can I speak?
Yes, certainly.
I just think that we talked about having buy-in from the community for the historic downtown. That's going to be time, it's going to be community outreach. We have a historic, I mean, it's obviously historic to me, and I think to a lot of the people in this community, that we just want to make sure. I know that these owners, I've read a lot of the history that's been written about it, and they've been part of this community for a long time. I can't imagine them pursuing an owner that would want to do something negative to the theater, and I can't imagine them not wanting us to help them with getting it historic. I think that we should not wait to do it as part of the historic downtown. It's going to take a long time, and this is for sale now. So I think that it should be a priority.
The historic downtown?
No, the theater
Oh, the
should be
theater.
a priority above the historic downtown. The historic downtown is going to take a while.
It is,
As well as it'll cost over 15,000.
yes. Yes,
I tend to agree with McCatton. The Ojai Playhouse is the theater. It's not going to change uses. I don't see designation as being an encumbrance to sale. It might improve the sale because it is a single-use property. I don't see it be converted to something else. And I agree with McCatton on her second point that pursuing designation for the downtown historic district is going to be an enormous undertaking and a very, I would expect, public comment period. And so my preference would be the library and the Playhouse because they're in the downtown core. I have a tremendous amount of apprehension about what it would take for putting together the downtown historic district, although I'm very much in favor of it.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Convery.
The Playhouse has Mead and Requa Post Office Tower on one side and Twice Sold Tales right on the other side, which is landmarked. So, it's a bookend. It's right in the middle. Of course, it's historic. So, yes, we should pursue it, but I again don't think it's going to affect anything with the sale because whoever tries to change it is going to have to come in here. Whether it's landmarked or not, they're going to have to go through the same steps in getting any kind of permits. So it's, to explain that to the owners that it's not really a moot point that it's landmarked as far as a sale and a new owner doing something with it, because they will have to go through these procedures and all of the requirements because of its location, because of what it's bookmarked by, and, it's standing in that street. So I think that's the presentation to the owners, that it's just a fact of life. It's going to happen,
I don't have a card and I wasn't expecting to speak. Are you taking public comment?
You already did public comment on this, the to-do list. Yes. Yeah, no, go right ahead. Yes, please come to the mic.
Dawn Teeting, given the fact that we don't know what and when the draft ordinance will be changed, there's actually no requirement. If somebody came in and wanted to change the Playhouse, As far as I know, there's nothing in the current ordinance that would require them to come to HPC, that would require necessarily any historic resource report. I absolutely understand about the historicness that it appears, but nothing in the current ordinance, Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, would require it coming to the HPC.
Nope,
Or
there's
require it to continue for use as a playhouse. And because it is for sale, just like Chaparral, I know it may not be a popular decision, but if you want to keep historic buildings, which I do feel is the charter of the HPC, to identify historic buildings and proceed accordingly, or identify potential historic buildings and proceed accordingly with historic resource reports, I would urge you, because of the urgency of the sale, potential sale, to put the Playhouse as number one. Boyd is city-owned, and I think the city has received some feedback that they should look long and hard at that, so I don't think that in terms of priorities is as much of a risk right now as what the Playhouse is. Library, no changes pending, and I agree with the comments that the historic district may take some time. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go right ahead.
Well, I agree that this should be done because if you take the amount of money that the Playhouse is being offered for sale, as the Playhouse, it's not going to justify that. And right now, as you said, the use can be changed by any buyer. But on the other hand, it feels to me like if we prevent him from making the use of his property by doing that, then we're in effect taking his property. So I have these two things, and I wish that they would just keep running it because they did a lovely job for 20 years or however long it's been. So.
Thank you. Again, talking with Mr. Anwar, when he talked to me, he said they are moving ahead with the restoration of the theater, that they expected that to take 5 months. The only battle he seems to be having is the suggestion that they close down Ojai Avenue so they can accommodate everyone that wants to come to the reopening. She will remain unnamed, but she is a wonderful, lovely force in the city who's suggesting that. And so he appeared to be looking forward to that exciting day when it was restored and they were able to celebrate that reopening. So I can only go by what people tell me. The other thing is, I think our position as a Historic Preservation Commission is to find out what is possibly historic. I mean, we have our own opinions, lots of opinions on whether REQA was involved in this house or not. But that's why we go and get a historic resources report for us to find out what's really historic about it. That was the same basis for going and landmarking the Chaparral School, the Nordhoff School, was to find out what was historic about it, what wasn't historic about it, and present that. So.
I have a comment.
Yes, Commissioner Comfrey.
And, to Commissioner Quinn, I understand your
Comfrey.
You're correct. I understand your approach, but, this isn't a private home. It's a standout property right in the middle of town. It's a landmark property. And when an owner buys a landmark property in a small town that has a character, your responsibility to the community is part of that ownership. Colette Al-Anwar is selling it. We don't know who might buy it and what their approach might be and whether they're going to feel that kind of responsibility. So for the greater good for the community, I feel that it should be protected and landmarked to maintain the integrity of the downtown, because we don't know who's coming in. We don't know what use it will be put to. And also, that's another thing they have to get approvals for if they want to turn it into a dance hall or I don't know what, another dry cleaner, because the dry cleaner turned into a bar. But, these are all things that we're here for, is to protect the integrity of the look of our historic neighborhoods. And it is the owner's responsibility when you buy a property like that. There is a responsibility to the community to protect that integrity of the community landmark. Otherwise, what's the point of having historic areas and designations? So I understand, you don't want to take money out of his pocket because somebody might not buy it, but that's not what the priority is. The priority is the greater good of the community, I think, from my opinion.
Okay, so setting priorities to suggest to the council. Again, Don has echoed what I've been saying for a number of months and working with Sophocles and with Mayor Johnson. They both are adamant that nothing will happen to the Boyd Center. Now, they could get replaced someday in the future, and things could change, but hopefully nobody's going to be elected in or appointed in or hired in that's going to take the Boyd Center away from us. So to me, that was a lower priority.
But I think that, why can't we just apply for all 4 of these to have RFPs? Come on, might as well throw it out there. But the Playhouse, the Boyd Center is very important in what it means, again, to the community. I mean, a boy died, and, the family built this. And when the next generation comes along and just blows that off and says, well, so what, we want to make it into a parking lot. It discourages, it does a lot of things. It's disrespectful. It discourages other people from giving and donating properties and monuments. It's just wrong, in my opinion, to dishonor that spirit in which this was created. So whether or not we have Sophocles or Mayor Johnston, 2 years ago they were sniffing around the Boyd Center quite heavily, to knock it down and make it into something else. So I think that is a priority with the Playhouse. And so are we having a conversation about what can be done and what the budget is allowing for? Is that what this is about?
Well, I think our conversation is to get it firm in the minutes that this is what we'd like, this is what we're recommending, and to stop saying, well, you guys just need to make a recommendation when we have. And so if we're making a recommendation and priorities, and we could set, I think all 4 of them, because again, they're in a current budget cycle for the next year.
Yeah.
So we have 2 this year, 2 next. Yes, Chair.
I would say the first 3 are easy to ask for RFPs for because they're defined buildings. Again, Downtown Historic District, if we wanted to get an RFP, we'd have to define that. It would be further discussion for us than what we have time for here tonight, streets, addresses. So I'm thinking maybe we just I would make a motion to send on to council that we want to get RFPs for the first 3.
Okay.
And express our interest in the Downtown Historic District at the same time.
Should we put Playhouse as number 1, Boyd Center as number 2, Library as number 3?
I think that's a good order.
Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? You want to call for a vote, Sherry? Please.
Commissioner Convery,
Sorry.
for the 3 in order,
Yes,
in that order.
I vote for that, yes.
Commissioner McCready?
Yes.
Vice Chair Quinn?
What's happening?
I think I'll abstain.
Okay. Chair Akins?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
I'm going to abstain too.
Commissioner McHatton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. The other thing on future agenda items is these things that fall into the dark hole. So we know now that our amendments to the city code is coming before the council in 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks. There's also the walking tour that Don mentioned. Is that something that you're doing, Sherry, or something we'll be doing, or?
Okay, I'll look into it.
Okay.
If you need help updating it, give us a call.
I mean, I think it's something that we can do, but,
We just had a volunteer.
yes, a very good volunteer. Okay. So, yeah, so just a suggestion that that be an action item on the next, on our meeting in a month, since you're our staff person again tonight. a very capable staff person. And item number 3, the Planning Commission suggestion, that will be covered in the city. Any other items of upcoming business we need to put on the agenda? Commissioner comments? Commissioner comments? Yes.
Your mic on?
Hello. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, you and me. So I know I'm Commissioner McCatton. One of the reasons I wanted to be active on the Historic Preservation Commission was to address community awareness of the commission and outreach and through social media. Would you like, I made a couple of these, would you like these as well? I'm going to read this. I met with Darwin to just kind of go over what I was thinking, so he understood before I came before you. Basically, the goal would be to increase community awareness of the Historic Preservation Commission and history within the Ojai Valley. We will have active Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages with the following names adjusted to follow platform standards. The social media email will be ohiohistoricpreservation@gmail.com. Facebook is Ojai Historic Preservation Commission. Twitter is Ojai HPC, and Instagram is Ojai Historic Preservation. Each month, we will attempt to showcase one historic property in Ojai through photos and short, valuable, interesting, and informational posts. We will also alternate monthly between showcasing either one person of knowledge, like a homeowner, a business owner, a museum docent, a Ojai history enthusiast, a commissioner, etc., or one of the listed places of merit with photos and short blurbs of why it is historically significant. And then continuous throughout the month, 4 or 6 times, little fun posts that are quick, that are like, have you seen, with a picture of something historically significant around town, maybe a did you know, a fact about Ojai history, maybe a feature, like do you have this in your home, then you probably live in a mid-century or a ranch or a bungalow, or other fun facts based in Ojai history and culture. And then links, at least one time per month, links or retweets or sharing of other Southern California places of events or interests like Santa Barbara and Los Angeles. Other social media post ideas, once we start to see a growing a following, could include a feed takeover, have a museum docent or other Ojai history buff take over our Instagram and post theme-based pictures. Maybe homeowner tips, have a professional give quick information, home renovation tips. Our mission would be that it is important that we are consistent with our posting and our mission. We always strive to find a balance between posting too much, I mean, who wants to follow someone who clogs up their feed, and not enough, because we want to have enough to grow our voice in the community. It's also crucial we understand that we are not a business, so none of our posts should be sponsored, and we should never do Google paid ads, that we will only strive for our unique and authentic voice. Also, we will never be political on any of our social media pages. We will only post facts, clarify facts, and not post opinions or hearsay. So that's the social media side of it. And then other community awareness ideas, I would like to consider approaching the City Council about making October Ojai Historic Preservation Awareness Month. We could tie it into Ojai Day, which is already deeply seeped in the history of Ojai. We already opened the jail, and we have a commissioner at that event. And then we can include a weekly event throughout October. Ideas could be a historic walk from our brochure that can be led by a commissioner, or we could join with the ones already offered at the museum. We can do a meetup with historic property owners, contractors, history enthusiasts, commissioners, museum docents to exchange ideas for preservation. We can also have schools create one of Ojai's historic buildings or historic cores as a contest, using different art mediums like painting, paper mache, even digitally. Events before and after can be featured on our social media pages. And then the final thing is, and I'm saying this clearly, I'm not trying to put any more work on you, Sherry, but I think that we do need to update the historic landmark destination brochure to include all the landmarks. It ends right now at 18, and any other brochure information we like to have on hand. And I was thinking to just do it through email, maybe pick a couple if I knew you were interested in working on social media, just to talk back and forth so we stay within the Brown Act, but we are able to communicate to get this done and hand things to you finished, so you're not doing the work. And also, the last thing is on the webpage. Right now, is updated, which is fantastic. It has the name of the property, it has the address, and it has the link to the what is that? The report. But it's great for professionals, but it's just too much technical information for casual, interested resident or tourist. So I suggest having an in-between layer for residents or tourists looking to find information about our landmarks. That would include a photo and a short informational blurb, which could just be the text of the plaque, to excite people to go look at them or to research them, but not to overwhelm them. But then if you want to go deeper, there's the report.
Great.
That's it.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think it's a terrific thing you put together here, Gina, and I think it's great, all of it.
Yes, very, very much.
Great.
One other thing, the Terramina sign that we saw previously is being looked for where it's going to be mounted, and that meeting is a week from tomorrow at 10 or 11? At 11, out at Terramina entrance on La Paz. So Terramina residents, Greg Grant, myself as the volunteer that I did last month, will be meeting to finally get those up, the beautiful signs. Thank you for arranging that, Sherry.
Good.
Okay, anything else?
Nope.
One more thing. I'm going to be attending the USC classes on Monday and Tuesday. I'm really excited.
Oh, good. We look forward to a report.
I'm
Great. Thank you,
hopeful to learn a
Gina.
lot.
Okay, we're done. Thank you, everyone.
So I already talked to Darwin, but he's no longer chairperson, so to get me reappointed,
Oh, yeah, I had that on there. What do we do?
you have to interview me with Mayor Johnson.
Okay, I'll talk to the mayor.
But somebody has, I was gonna ask Sherry, but somebody has to get the ball rolling to do that.
Okay, I'll